It is Sunday afternoon, and I'm just sitting down to do some planning for my upcoming week. And I thought I would take you with me because I am in the middle of a full-time UX research contract, and I've been tweaking some of the things that I do in my planner to keep me organized. It is a very quick turnaround project with very aggressive timelines, and planning in my book to give me a sense of what I can expect for the upcoming week is one of the ways that I am able to manage some of the anxiety that I feel around working on projects like this. So I thought we could have a very quick and casual, messy planning session where I take you through how I plan ahead for a busy week while working full-time on a UX research contract and part-time as a therapist, and also how I manage meal planning when it's a busy period like this. So let's just get right into it. I have my planner, my planning system, which is my A6 hobonichi and my weekly supplement. My planning utensil is my vanishing point, and I often reach for my pencil. And also, I usually grab my ruler, and I think my yellow ruler, the one I talked about in my last video, which is my preferred ruler, I don't know where that is at the moment, so we're just going to use this one for now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my week ahead, and I'll just show you, this is the week that just passed. So a little bit of background on me, because I think everyone's planning style is going to change depending on what type of work you do. So if you're someone who has a lot of recurring meetings that move around often, maybe this kind of system isn't really going to work for you. Probably a digital system is going to work the best for you. When I worked full-time as a permanent employee, my meetings were constantly changing because I was in so many team meetings and deadlines were constantly moving depending on new information. So trying to keep track of any project that was ongoing in this kind of style, I don't think would have worked for me. The reason why it works for me now is because the types of projects that I take do tend to have more inflexible dates. And when it comes to, say, my therapy work, I usually find that those don't tend to move around too much if I'm inputting them into my system the week before. So if I were to put in a month's worth of sessions in here, it would probably move around. But I find that waiting until the week before to lay everything out in my week tends to be pretty fixed, if that makes sense. So I've mentioned in my past videos that this is really a tool for me to see my upcoming week so that I can really get a sense of, is this the kind of week where I'm going to have a lot of back-to-backs and I'm really going to have to be strategic with the focus time that I have? Or is this the kind of week where the main thing that I'll be working on will maybe take all week long, like writing a report? So I'm going to want to make sure that I minimize the meetings that I have, or that I adjust them so that I ensure that I have nice pockets of time. The other thing with the type of work I do is, as a researcher, there are pretty common phases that I end up working through. So this may or may not be relevant to you, but if you're someone who maybe works in sprints, and you may have a certain number of tickets or a certain number of tasks that you want to get within, whatever your sprint period is. That's kind of like how I treat research. I almost treat things as like different phases. And in a way, what I've outlined here is kind of like a research sprint. So it's a lot of different activities that have to happen in a pretty specified amount of time. And it's really important for me to be ultra aware of those deadlines because they're not that flexible. So once I know what those deadlines are, it's really important for me to put them in so that I can constantly remind myself of those deadlines and make sure that I'm reaching them. Or if I'm potentially not going to reach them, then this is one way that I can kind of look ahead and just make sure that I take the steps necessary to adjust the timelines or inform the right people if I need to. So in my research sprint, I've sort of laid it out in weeks. So as an example, this is what I'm calling week 0 because it's before the project officially kicked off, but I did start the project a little bit early just so that I could read into things, gather context, and prepare myself for the official start of the project or the research sprint. So here, then, this is going to be a 4-week research sprint. And so the way that I have outlined it is I've got, instead of highlighting every day in the same color, I've just decided to try highlighting the top here, so Monday to Friday. And I've sort of named what the theme of the week is. So in this week, the main things that I needed to get accomplished was I needed to prepare for some workshops that would help me understand what the research really was that I had to do. And then by the end of the week, I needed to propose a research plan. So basically, every task that happened in this week was in service of these two things. So yeah, and then I just have different events color-coded depending on what they were related to. And so another thing that I have started to do is I've also added on the side here things that were due. And the idea, I didn't do it here, but the idea is that I can also highlight the things on the side here depending on what they're related to. So for example, like I have something here that is allergy shot. That's more of a personal thing. It's not really related to work. So that gets a certain color highlight. And then anything related to this project can get a gray highlight. So this is another way that I find can help me kind of figure things out, because as you can see, there were a lot of things that had to get done this week, and it kind of just helps me to see like how I'm really going to be spending the week. So then week 2, I've already laid out, this is going to be recruitment and starting interviews. Week 3, I haven't labeled it yet, but that's something that we're going to do today. And then week 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my research plan where I have my milestones or the different dates that I've already committed to that things are due, and I'm going to input them in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what's in here and I'm going to input them into my specific days, just so I can have like another reminder of when certain things are due. So I'm just going to open that up on my laptop. So I do all my planning with my Pilot Vanishing Point. This is in a fine nib, and I've got a document ink. This is Diatramentis Document Sepia Brown. And I like this ink because when it dries, you can highlight over things really easily. I'm going to start by putting in all of the different things that are due this week. Okay, so those are my main things. Now I'm going to, actually, maybe what I'll do is I'm actually going to go ahead and do week 3 as well. Okay, and then week 4. Okay, so now I've kind of labeled all the different things that need to happen. And then I'm just going to go in and continue putting down some to-dos. Okay. So I've got all my really key dates in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to week 2 and I'm going to take a look at the meetings that I already know are scheduled and in my calendar. Okay, and then okay. So I'll fill these in later, but basically these are the meetings that I know are happening. And because I'll be running interviews, the rest of this week are going, there's going to be more that's added here, but that's going to happen later. So that's kind of all I really do in terms of planning in my weekly vertical heading into the week. The other thing that I am going to do now is I'm going to do a little bit of meal planning. Now, when I get really busy like this, I do sometimes use this as an opportunity to, every so often, I like to take little vacations from cooking. And that includes, sometimes it means eating out a little more frequently, but other times it means tapping into a lot of the frozen food that we have in our freezer. So I think for this one, I'm going to tap into some of it. And I'm also going to do the same in the following week because I know this is going to be a busy few weeks. So this is going to be a cooking night because it's kind of at the beginning of the week before things get really busy. And then this will be another cooking night. So I don't really know what I want to make yet. So I think I'm going to consult my favorite recipes. So let's see. Oh, okay. Okay, and then this is going to be leftovers. And I think by this day I'm going to be really tired, so I am going to grab something from the freezer. So I'm just going to put leftovers, freezer, and I think we have a chicken meal that we can tap into. Saturday, I think we'll do either leftovers or takeout. And I think on Sunday, I'm gonna put pizza. Okay, so that's 1 week. Now, for the next week, okay, so we'll have some leftovers. I think on this Monday, I'll want to cook something really easy. So I think I'm gonna do a classic. And this will be leftovers. And I think if we don't have any leftovers, I'm going to say leftovers or takeout. I think if we don't have any food, I'm just happy to do, I think we'll just finish the week maybe just doing some takeout. Because I've been kind of looking for a bit of a break. So this is going to be that week. Okay, so that's all the planning that I have in here. And now I'm going to move into my A6. So I'm going to set up my tracker. Okay, so I'll let that dry and then I'll highlight that. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to look ahead and I'm going to put in some things that I need to remember for tomorrow so that as soon as I open up my book and I start work, I will know exactly what I need to be focusing on. So this is just one of the ways that I find kind of helps me a little bit with my anxiety, because sometimes I get anxious about feeling really overwhelmed when I know I have a lot of work to do and I know that it's going to take a lot of energy, and just breaking it out into my calendar and being able to see all the things that are coming up, and then further breaking it down into what I need to focus on for today. And if there are any deadlines, having that explicitly here just makes it feel a little more approachable. So even if I know somewhere down the line I'm going to have to run a number of interviews, I'm going to have to analyze those interviews, and I'm going to have to generate a report, that does all feel a little bit overwhelming. But what I need to focus on tomorrow, on Monday, is I need to finish setting up my recruitment, and I need to finish my moderator guide so that I can send that off and get that approved. So I know that I can do those two things tomorrow. If I start thinking about all of the other work that I have to do, then I'm going to start getting overwhelmed and I'm going to start feeling paralyzed. But breaking it out like this, it helps break it out into more manageable tasks. So I'm going to put in my meetings. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure that I write down what I need to do. Okay, so I think that's everything that I need to do. And then I've also made notes here. I have a specific meeting that's coming up, and I have specific questions that I wanted to ask in that meeting. So what I sometimes do in here as well is I will just add like notes on the things that I want to remember to ask in the meeting. So that's another way that I like to use the notes here. So I think we are ready for tomorrow, which is great. The other thing that I guess wanted to address really quickly is I have learned over time that while I like to put as much information as possible here for my benefit, I have learned to almost anonymize everything. So you'll notice that I will never put a certain client's name. And that's mainly because if I did put confidential information in here, I would probably have to shred this book at some point, and I I don't like to shred my planners. I like to keep them for memory. Like I do a lot of, I do use it for different things. So over time, I have learned to keep it as general as possible. So it could apply to any client or it could apply to any project. But the main thing that I need out of this is I need to remember the milestones. So I need to remember that I need to finish a moderator guide, but I wouldn't put in here the specific things that I need to update around a moderator guide, or if I'm running interviews, I won't put specific details about the interviews, but I might say interviews will start on this date. So very general information. And I just find that that makes me feel better about using my planner for work, because I do think that depending on your job, the work that you do may be confidential, and therefore that's why sometimes it's actually easier to just do a lot of your planning and stuff digitally, which is what I used to do, because all of that stuff would be kept within, your company's cloud. So everything just stays within that. But if you need to do paper planning, which I do to keep myself on track, this is how I do it, is I don't put any specific details. And I just find that that really has helped me. And then when I do take notes that are specific to the project, I do have a separate notebook. And this is a booklet. It's actually from Sterling Ink. I got it last year and I adore it. This is my favorite size when I'm taking notes. Especially if I'm doing something like running interviews, I just find like this is so much space to take notes and just kind of help me think on paper. So anything like this size or larger, I use for project specific notes. And I can do this because I know at the end of the project, I can just shred this and I don't feel like I'm, really missing out on anything. But honestly, it would make me very sad to shred my planner. So that's just one thing that I do that I thought I would share in case you were in the situation of having a lot of confidential information and wanting to plan on paper, because I think analog planning is the best, but not really knowing how to kind of deal with that information. If you're okay with shredding your book at the end, then by all means, I totally understand, like have a separate book for work and then just shred it. That's fine. I just think having a separate book for work and personal was a little bit too much for me, because they all kind of blend together, and sometimes the personal tasks kind of get woven around work tasks. So it's just easier if I have it all in one place. But this is just one of the ways that I do it. So I think that's everything from a planning perspective. I hope you enjoyed this installment of my messy planning. I am well aware that my planning is not very aesthetic and not that interesting to look at. So I hope that some of this process has at least been somewhat interesting for you. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, my approach, or how I use these two books together, let me know in the comments. I would love to chat with you. Otherwise, I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great weekend, and I'll see you soon in the next video.